Hi there. In this video, I'll do the newest economics exam paper 3, which is from the May 23 exam. I hope this video content will be a bit of help to your productive economics revision. Then let's get started with the business. Yeah, here we are, given some guiding information, exam time. We're supposed to answer all the questions, where to write answers, and how to write answers, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Maximum mark, 58 marks, things like that. What must be clearly noted is that for the paper 3, you must answer all the questions. It wasn't like this for the previous year, so that must be really clearly understood. Yeah, so all right, given the fact that the guideline has been understood, let's start with the question number 1. Capsicum prices reach 24 New Zealand dollars per kilogram. Okay, it is reaching all-time high, and it happens to the other vegetable prices too, and it's partly because of the weather condition, which is winter. However, what is much more problematic is the retail prices. Yeah, since the supermarket industry in New Zealand is dominated by 2 big companies. Yeah, okay. Okay, the given information, supply decreasing, shifting to the left. Obviously, quantity available decreases, price increases. Okay, question A1, using the information in figure 1, calculate the PED for capsicums when the prices increases from 18 to 24. Very typical PED calculation question, percentage change of price, percentage change of quantity. Yeah, I know both of them clearly. So price first, yeah. So the difference between 2 prices, previous price, and about the quantity, yeah. Previously 55, decreasing to 40. Yeah, okay. Then 40 minus 55, difference between 2 quantities, and the previous quantity 55. And I can get 27.27, 33.33 something, which must be multiplied with 100. So my answer is 0. minus 0.82. Things like that. Question A2. Calculate the loss in consumer surplus resulting from the increase in the price of capsicums from 18 to 24. Loss, something which has gone. So the previous consumer surplus would have been the size of this much, but then now it is decreasing to this much. So what I have to focus is this place, which is a loss. Yeah, then let's give it a go. 40,000, which is quantity, after quantity, prices, multiply with 0.5, halving, since it is triangle, and 55, previous quantity, prices, multiply with 0.5, then I can get something $285,000 as change. Assume that the rate of indirect tax on capsicums in New Zealand is 20%, which doesn't look quite affordable. The price of capsicums includes the indirect tax, all right? 3, calculate the revenue per kilogram after tax has been paid to producers, okay, revenue for producers, when the price is 24, after the price has been increased, right? So let's go to the revenue. And also it is per kilogram, which is divided by the quantity already. So I think I can focus on the price 24. Yeah, 24. And then if you want to know the net revenue that the producers are able to take after tax has been paid, then I can calculate the simple way to calculated, which is 1.2. Since the indirect tax is 20%, then I can get the net revenue for the producers, which is $20. Question 4, with reference to figure 1, explain why the PED for capsicums would change if the price continued to increase beyond $24 per kilogram. The reason is because consumers become more responsive to an increase in price rather than decreasing price, because with higher and higher prices, consumers will be more inclined to purchase of substitutes instead of the current consumption on capsicums. So it is getting more and more elastic. That's what we have to explain. Next information is given about the high profit being earned to the duopoly in supermarkets industry. Okay, there are 2 huge firms and they control over 85% of the total market, blah, blah, blah. So that government is considering to regulate them, just like Germany. No, not Germany. I mean, a German retailer entering to the Australian supermarket, so that the Australian supermarket also is getting more competitive, things like that. So I think New Zealand government wants to do the same thing, things like this. Okay. Next question, simple question, 2 marks. Define the term market power. What does it mean by one firm or some firms have market power? It means market power refers to a situation where a firm occupies the position of determining product price. That's the key information, so that it is able to have some control over consumers with its diverse types of market barriers, such as patent or technology or whatever. Next, figure 2 illustrate a market in which 2 firms act as a monopolist in a market for cheese by colluding on the price they charge. Okay, so 2 firms are operating just like a huge single firm. Next question. With specific reference to the information in figure 2, we need to refer to specific information. Explain how 2 firms acting as a monopolist by colluding on price could lead to market failure. So let's specifically refer to the information. 2 firms colluding on price. Okay, so they determine their product price at the profit maximizing point, which is MR equals MC. So here 80,000 kilogram quantity, and they charge at they charge in here, which is this one, 26 probably. But why is it a market failure according to the question? Is because they're not producing as much as consumers want, which means they're not satisfying allocative efficiency. So allocative efficiency point is where MC curve meets AR curve, which is here. So actually consumers want around this much. MC equals AR, which is 110. However, they only produce 80, which means there is definite shortage in this market. So I can say that, referring to the information, profit maximizing quantities are 80,000 kilograms, but what market really genuinely wants is 110,000 kilograms, which means the monopoly power can lead to the firm producing at a level below the allocative efficiency level, so it is producing less. That's why. Use next question. Using the data provided in figure 2, calculate the profit earned by these firms if they are operating at the profit maximizing level of output in the market for cheese. Yeah, I just talked about the profit maximizing point. How much was it? 80. So we're going to calculate the profit for the firms. The profit, it's going to be price minus cost is spent. So I can say that at the profit maximizing point, which is MR equals MC, it's here, which is 10. Well, I don't need to mind this 10 actually. So it is okay at the profit margin level, which is at the point where MR equals MC here, but the price is going to be 26. And to produce this quantity, how much cost does it spend? Okay, we go to find the cost curve. Here we are, AC. So cost is 18. Then 26 minus 18, multiply with how much quantity? 80,000. Okay, so 80. Then I can get $640,000. That's the profit. For some reason, the following question is removed. Yeah, the very last question, which is the essay question for this question number 1. Using the text data provided and your knowledge of economics, recommend a policy which could be introduced by the New Zealand Commerce Commission to limit the possible abuse of market power within the supermarket industry in New Zealand. So we need to consider to limit the possible abuse of market power, which means you have to either regulate or punish the two duopoly within the New Zealand market, or you have to somehow make the market to be more competitive by allowing other firms to join, things like that. So considering that, let's recommend a policy. The policy that I recommend is removing barriers to entry of new competitors, such as like removing the restriction of some other firms to join. For example, I'm gonna make the license to do business in my country to be more accessible, or to the foreign firms, foreign retailers, I'm gonna decrease the tax of them, things like that, right? So simply saying my policy is to remove barriers to new competitors' entrance, which means I need to present the rationales behind recommending this policy. And then I'm going to bring all my evidences from the given information from the previous content. First of all, I want to say you really need to make the market more competitive so that the price would go down, since vegetables are definitely really, really important, necessary goods. So it has quite low PED, which means it's going to be directly affecting living standards disproportionately to the New Zealand consumers if prices are continuously increasing. Next rationale is that considering the relatively high rate of indirect tax given to the capsicums in New Zealand and the duopoly nature of the market structure, the tax burdens are really highly likely to be heavier to consumers, obviously not the producers. Therefore, it's going to further aggravate the income inequality of the country. So I guess it has to be somehow more affordable by making the industry more competitive. Third rationale is that PES itself is going to be quite inelastic due to the nature of agricultural goods. Therefore, the government has to consider making the supply itself to be more stable and elastic by accepting more retailers or by accepting more supply side. Coming up, New Zealand's supermarket industry is dominated by two huge firms, as we already have talked about, such as Foodstuffs and Woolworth, making huge profit and charging some of the highest prices over city. Yeah. I think I have to use this evidence to somewhere in here, along with this third one, maybe. Yeah, but for now, let's just leave it there. And last rationale that I want to persuade the government is that being seen from the example of a German retailer entering into Australian supermarket industry, which was also used to be dominated by two firms, but now it is increasing its competition by allowing the German retailer, so that the market itself, the industry itself is cutting prices, like thanks to the competition. Yeah. So that the prices are decreasing around 30%. And therefore, Australian consumers are being more benefited by that. Therefore, I think this evidence can be used to persuade the New Zealand government to do the same. Let's decrease the market price by allowing more competitors. These are the rationales that I can present to recommend and persuade the government with my recommending policy. However, in body 2, I'm going to present some of the concerns that I have when it comes to applying my policy successfully. First, I understand that there are highly expected significant barriers to entry, obviously, because for now, most of the proper sites, proper locations are being occupied by the duopoly firms. So to the new retailers, it's going to be quite difficult to find suitable sites for large-scale retail stores, things like that. That's already given as a data. Now, in the short term, what is expected is the domestic firms, the duopolies, profit will decrease. What I reckon as the last concern is that the government may need to focus on subsidizing or incentivizing farmers, not the retailers. You know, maybe that's the absolute and fundamental answer to make the product itself more elastic, considering the weather disruptions or things like that, you know. Conclusion. Nonetheless, I still recommend my policy since the duopoly market structure operating at the moment has no advantages on consumers whatsoever. Therefore, it has to be sorted out. Yes. Number 2. Number 2 is mostly coming from macro and global content. Okay. It's about Naira, which is Nigeria's currency. Okay. So it is devaluing in the coming months. Okay. And they are worried about the further decreasing due to the worsened economic situation. Nigeria is heavily relying on exporting oil. Okay, yes. And since the currency value is devaluing all the time, so that even the domestic citizens are worried about the further decrease of the value, so they are like exchanging their own currency into something more safe, such as US dollars or things like that. So, yeah. Even one economist says, if you have Naira, you should go and exchange into dollars or pounds or any other foreign exchange. Why? Because your currency is losing its value, things like that. And the table 1 data is given consumer price index. Okay. Oh, the country is experiencing inflation, 310, 361. Nominal GDP is increasing. Why? It's because of inflation, not because the country is getting richer. GDP deflator increasing because of the inflation, population increasing, which is the good news. All right, so information. All right, A1, using the information provided in table 1, calculate the inflation rate for Nigeria between 2020 and 2021. Okay. Inflation rate. I can use the CPI. The difference between last year and this year and compared to last year. So quite straightforward. The difference, 0.2 divided by previous year, multiply with 100. So inflation rate is 16.44, which is quite high, really high actually. A2, using information provided in table 1, calculate the real GDP in Naira for Nigeria in 2020, not 2021. Real GDP. So I'm going to use nominal GDP and I'm going to use GDP deflator to find out the real value. So you divide this one to the other. So 142,588 divided by deflator 67. So real GDP is going to be something billion. 3. Using the information provided in table 1 and your answer to part A2, calculate the real GDP per capita. Straightforward. All right. Divided by the population. Stated. Divided by the population in 2020, which is this one, 206. Then I can find 341,528. Following information is about the Nigeria's exchange rate market, where adopt fixed exchange rate system. Okay. So even if the IMF is recommending it to transform its system to fluctuating, it doesn't, because it fears of further devaluing, things like that. Okay. But the bad news is occurring, such as global recession, and it is somehow affecting the oil exports quite damagingly. Yeah. Okay. So official exchange rate is going this way, which means to buy the same amount of US dollars, you have to pay more Naira, which means your Naira is losing its value. Business pays US dollars 14,000 every year to a consultant in the United States. Using the information in table 2, calculate the increase in the cost of this payment between 18 and 20. Obviously, for Nigerians, this is not a good news. Yeah, so let's calculate in 2018 how much did it pay. So considering the 14,000, if you use the exchange rate, then you multiply this one 306.5, then you can get the Nigerian value of this payment. So like this much Naira. However, Naira value is decreasing. In 2020, you technically have to pay more, even though it looks like the same in US dollar value. So the same 14,000 multiply with the new exchange rate, 379.5. And actually you're paying 5,313,000. So you find the gap between these two, which is going to be about 1,022,000. Yeah, that's the increase in the cost of this payment. Okay, following information says it is estimated that if the Naira were floating, not the fixed, the exchange rate would be 470 Naira per US dollars in 2020, and therefore the currency is overvalued at the official exchange rate. Okay, I can say your currency value is manipulated within the fixed system so that it is having higher value by the government than the market actually sees its value. That's the overvalued currency. Next question. Using an exchange rate diagram, explain how the Central Bank of Nigeria might attempt to maintain a fixed exchange rate. Basically, since it is losing its value, but it wants to keep the value so that it has to, in other words, increase the value of Naira. Therefore, what I can say is, drawing the diagram first. Okay, so it's the ER and the Q of Naira, and suppliers, the domestic Nigerians, and this one is the foreigners, foreign demand. And then this is the current value, ER1, but it wants to increase or actually bring back the value to the previous level, which means it has to increase the value of Naira. So I want to say, so let's assume that within the US exchange rate market, I'm going to sell the foreign reserve that I have, and then I'm going to buy my own currency so that I can increase my Naira value, Q1, ER2. Here we go. The central bank is selling foreign currency to purchase Naira, thus increasing demand for Naira on the foreign exchange market. bringing the price of the Naira back to the fixed rate, revaluing, so-called revaluing, In 2020, it's the other way around situation. An American importer purchased a shipment of garments from Nigeria costing 800,000 Naira. Actually, for an American, that's a good news because their currency value is relatively increasing compared to Naira. The exchange rate in 2020 and by doing that, I can get the US dollar value, which is moving on. Using an ADA's diagram and information from Table 2, explain how the change in the official value of the Naira between 18 and 20 might have influenced the rate of inflation for Nigeria. But considering the nature of this question, I guess it's the foreign exchange rate. So we need to see the net export side, not the CIG, things like that from the AD. But so if I see the net exports, then we can assume that when my currency value is decreasing, my export becomes more competitive. And at the same time, my imports are losing because it's getting more expensive to import. So in terms of ADAS, I can tell AD, SRAS, price level, real GDP. It's the previous Y1, PL1, but then my net exports are going to increase. So I can assume that my AD will increase. Y2, PL2. That's what I can tell. And I'm going to put the explanation in words. Decreasing the price of the Naira will result in an increase in the net exports due to cheaper exports and more expensive imports. So it's going to increase AD, causing inflation and higher GDP. We have arrived to the very last question, which is asking us to recommend a policy which could be introduced in Nigeria to stabilize the value of the Naira. Okay. To stabilize the value of the Naira, the policy that I recommend is to increase the domestic competitiveness of manufactured goods. Which means I would like to recommend the government to conduct a type of market-oriented supply-side policy so that the Nigerian domestic firms and domestic industries can be more competitive and can be more productive, especially within the manufacturing industry, rather than the primary sector industry, such as oil or things like that. I have my data and information supported rationales behind recommending this policy. First, while oil contributes less than 10% of Nigerian gross domestic product, it accounts for nearly all foreign exchange earnings, which means most of goods and services that they produce are too low value to earn foreign reserves, or it has no competitiveness when it comes to be traded within the international trade market, right? So that's why I feel like it has to increase its competitiveness within more diverse items. Also, the economy has too high reliance on primary sector goods, as I've just pointed out, 90% of whose foreign exchange earnings come from oil exports, as the information from the text is said. So it is pushing the country to be much more volatile from the external economic factors, such as the global recession or things like that. Okay, with the same logic, I want to recommend the government to diversify the industrial sectors, especially where current demand lies. Considering the fact that the population is increasing from 206 to 212, consumer goods such as cooking oil, cars, fuels, all these necessary products are being imported, which means it has to make it more domestic consumables. Nonetheless, I do mind the realistic situations of this country. which means I am going to point out potential concerns on recommending this policy. Short-term disruption is largely expected and to be continued, since many Nigerians are highly concerned about the currency value at the moment. That conducting proper monetary policy to revalue the currency value can work like more nimbly or more quickly to calm down the concern of the people. This is not from the given text, but I just brought the syllabus knowledge, which is about the martial law and land condition. What is worrying is that short-term PD, which is inelastic, can further worsen the trade deficit for the moment. So the continuing depreciation can even worsen the economic situation and poverty of the country. Summing up, simply saying, I know that opportunity cost of conducting monetary policy can be quite high. I'm aware of that. Like, the government has to consider the huge opportunity cost of transitioning from the primary sector concentrated industry to the manufacturing sectors that is nearly none for now. So that's a huge cost. Conclusion? Do I still recommend? Yes. Yes, I do, because even though it has some concerns behind, I believe this policy, the supply side policy of making the domestic industry more competitive, is the most fundamental and sustainable way to healthily recover the trade balance and stabilize the currency value, which is Naira value. It's in two. All right, this is the end. If you have come this much far, thank you so much. I will see you again with new economics paper revision videos anytime soon. Thank you. Bye.